forever. None of this have happened or will ever happen. India has failed and will continue to fail in its dark attempts. Today, India stands fully exposed before the international community for usurping the fundamental freedoms of the Kashmiri people. India's human rights violations have removed the facade of it being a so-called democracy. Sadly, despite the global condemnation, India has not corrected its course. On the one hand, India is busy further perpetuating its occupation of the IIOJK through illegal demographic changes, and on the other, its political and military leaders continue to spew hate and hostility towards Pakistan. The recent report by EU Disinfo Lab about India's global disinformation campaign against Pakistan has further validated Pakistan's position about India's evil designs. Ladies and gentlemen, for far too long, India has oppressed the innocent people of Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir. Its tactics include, but are not limited to, an inhuman military siege, the most unprecedented communication blockade in modern history, extrajudicial killings in fake encounters and staged cordon and search operations, usurping rights to freedom, life, liberty, education, and every other possible human right of the Kashmiris. Use of pellet guns against peaceful demonstrations. Destruction of Kashmiri houses to inflict collective punishment on Kashmiri communities. Implementing an elaborate and well-planned strategy of military occupation, land confiscation, influx of non-Kashmiris, and creation of alien settlements in Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir. Granting complete impunity to the Indian occupation forces through draconian laws and denying the right to self-determination of the Kashmiri people. Ladies and gentlemen, let me emphasize that the world community cannot look away when millions of Kashmiris face the threat of extermination through genocidal acts of Indian occupation troops. It is not me, the Foreign Minister of Pakistan, making this assertion. Rather, independent observers like Genocide Watch have issued alerts. Distinguished guests, India's denial of the Kashmiris to right to self-determination is an affront to the international community. It is the will of the international community that is represented through the numerous UN Security Council resolutions on Jammu and Kashmir dispute. It is that very will that India continues to disobey. India's human rights violations in Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir challenge the collective conscience of mankind. India cannot pretend that what happens in this internationally recognized disputed territory is an internal matter. Let me acknowledge that the world community has responded to the humanitarian crisis in Indian-occupied Kashmir. Condemnation by multilateral and human rights organizations, international media, civil society, and parliaments around the globe is a testimony to both the currency and the urgency of Jammu and Kashmir dispute. Though significant, the response is, however, not enough. Not enough because no response can be enough till India is held fully accountable for its serious crimes against the Kashmiri people, until the realization of the Kashmiris' legitimate right to self-determination. Ladies and gentlemen, I therefore once again call upon the international community to hold India accountable and demand that India undertakes these steps. Immediately lift the continuing military siege and rescind illegal and inhuman actions taken in IIOJK. Remove restrictions on communications, movement, and peaceful assembly. Immediately release the incarcerated Kashmiri political leaders and allow them to express their wishes of the Kashmiri people. Free arbitrarily and illegally detained Kashmiris. Reverse the new domicile rules designed to change the demographic structure of the Indian-occupied Kashmir and cancel all fake domicile granted to non-Kashmiris. Remove the draconian laws granting impunity to Indian occupation forces. Allow access for United Nations observers, international human rights and humanitarian organizations, and the international media to Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir. Immediately halt its ceasefire violations across the line of control and the working boundary. Stop sponsoring terrorism against the people of Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir, and fulfill its obligation of holding a free and impartial plebiscite under the auspices of the United Nations to let the Kashmiris exercise their inalienable right to self-determination as enshrined in numerous Security Council resolutions. Ladies and gentlemen, I would conclude my remarks with the words of the Nobel laureate Elie Wiesel. He said, and I quote, "We must always take sides. Neutrality helps the oppressor, never the victim. Silence encourages the terminator, never the tormentor, never the tormented. Now is the time to take sides." On this Kashmir Solidarity Day, let us vow to help the oppressed and not the oppressor. Let us promise to encourage the tormented and not the tormentor. And let us decide with the innocent people of the Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir and not their brutal occupier. I thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's my privilege to invite the chief guest, His Excellency Dr. Arif Alvi, the President, Islamic Republic of Pakistan.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. I need to pick this up then. Honorable Minister of Foreign Affairs, Mahdum Shah Mahmud Qureshi Sahab, Chair Kashmir Committee, Shahryar Afridi Sahab, Director Institute of Strategic Studies, Azaz Sahab, SAPM Mohid Yusuf Sahab, Mr. Qureshi, Mishal Malik Sahiba, Excellencies, Honorable Ministers, distinguished guests, Ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum. It is an honor for me to welcome you to the President's House to be part of the special event to mark the Kashmir Solidarity Day. It has been 73 years and you've heard a number of speakers as well as a presentation on what has been happening in Kashmir. We gather here to commemorate the huge sacrifices which have been made by the Kashmiri people, but at the same time to let the world know, let the world not forget what has been happening there, what is happening there, and what were the promises made to the Kashmiri people. It has been a long struggle.